Hello, greetings and salutations, everyone. Sorry we're about 2 minutes late. Just trying to get this whole thing arranged. Haven't done a live stream in a while, so if anyone wants to join in with comments, I'll try to keep an eye out for them. Particularly big questions we'll maybe save towards the end of the live stream. Here with Mark from BH Spring Solutions. So welcome, Mark. How you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm all right, dealing with the cold. I think you're still dealing with it worse. But tonight we're going to talk about your business. First, let's tackle the p320 stuff, and then let's talk about all the other pistol platforms that you guys kind of focus on. Of course, it started with, Browning High Powers. Then you got into 1911s. And at this point, you're basically doing all Browning designs and all Leon Hubert design stuff.
Basically, yes. For the most part, we also have the world's only drop-in manual safety for Glock pistols. So
okay,
that's another one, and we also specialize in CZ75s and Makarovs. So those would tail off of the John Browning and Leon Hubert theme, but that pretty well covers it. Yeah.
Okay, so you started with high power springs. And now you get 1911s, and then you got into all the Browning stuff, Hubert stuff, CZ75s, and pistol at the Makarovas, which I shot mine yesterday as a Magnum.
Yeah.
Mine's in 380. It's an IMEZ Russian 380 Makarov with adjustable night sights from Europe.
There you go.
Tell me that didn't do sneaky stuff.
Okay, hey, I got a quiz for you. So if you shoot a 9x18 Makarov or a 9x17 380 into a watermelon wrapped with spare ribs, which one performs better?
With the critical defense hollow points, they actually penetrated a bit farther in 380, even though technically Makarov is a more powerful cartridge, I believe, because you got a little more expansions out of the Makarov round. Talking hollow points. And FMJ, neither one's going to go through those back ribs into the back T-shirts. I do believe.
we did an 11 caliber, 11 handgun caliber, what we called max destruction test, using that media I was just telling you about 2 years ago, and the 380 ACP, and we tried to get real mainstream carry ammunition, to shoot into that media, being, pork spare ribs front and back on a whole watermelon. And the 380 did perform just a little better than the 9mm Makarov.
Good, because that ammo dried up, so I got a 381. I like it. I like it a lot. I shot my 4 big 380s yesterday to film some content, and also to film with gloves. The gloves is kind of like HR Funk did, is how winter clothing, how affects self-defense basically, and he did everything from low radio because he actually froze his ass off. I was actually cold in the range and wanted to put my coat on anyway in 3 layers and a big sweater yesterday, but I did a video in gloves because it's about drawing. Getting that master grip isn't so easy, and getting in the trigger guard isn't so easy with gloves. So that's my video I have that will go live Sunday.
Right. Well, hey, the other giveaway on that question I asked you is John Browning designed the 9mm short, also known as the 380 ACP. So that's the reason why he could defy gravity.
Yeah. Well, for the second half, I'd like to kind of start there with 1903, 1908, and then onto the further designs.
Okay.
But let's jump right in. And guys, if you're joining, I'll look at some comments and questions. Please, we'll take big questions at the end if you want. I know I haven't done a live stream in years, but if this goes well, maybe we can make it a regular thing. So let's just say I have a fairly educated subscriber base, but they're not gunsmiths, and they just want to be able to defend themselves, and they've seen enough smoke to go, there's fire with my P320. They were smart enough to throw it in the back of the safe like I did and let it rust there. And if you don't want to just let it rust and lose all your money, because all the local stores won't even buy them around here. But you go, hey, there's smoke, there's some kind of fire. It's too much of a risk for my life, my family's life. So you're now offering services starting off pretty budget friendly to take what is now, metal in the back of the safe and some plastic and be able to make it a pretty safe firearm again. Is that right?
Yeah. We started into business because we figured out that we could optimize reliability, function, and margins of safety through superior spring design. And then Leon Hubert joined us about 6 years ago, and officially as our chief weapons modifications designer 3 years ago, and going on 4 years. And he was FN's designer that really followed John Browning and then Dieudonné Save as the chief weapons and modifications designer at FN in Urstal, Belgium, and now he's with us. And the short story of how we have found so many ways that to add back margins of safety in the P320 is because it's opportunities for stronger margins of safety just happen to land in our wheelhouse, and I mean just directly in our wheelhouse. We do have now specialized knowledge regarding gun springs and how they impact, slide cycle rates and really everything that happens in a firearm, because everything that happens in a firearm, as far as reliability and function and accuracy and safety, all relies on pieces and parts being where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. And generally, unless it's mechanically mandated or mechanically dictated by design, it's all reliant on spring pressure. So that, is my co-founding partner Slav's and my one of our areas of expertise. And then, you add Leon in on the superior gun design front and parts design. And those two things in combination are what led us to modifications in the P320 that, we've got this video that I'm on the roof of the house throwing this P320 off, with a primed empty cartridge in it. And we drag it down the road 2 miles behind a truck, bouncing all over the place and running over it with a car. And we never could get that P320 to misbehave no matter what we did to it. But what's attributable to that is the areas that can be strengthened just happened to land in our areas of competency where we're strongest.
So am I correct in saying you found 3 or 4 kind of problem areas enough that maybe needed beefing up or a bit of a redesign to make safer, and your knowledge of looking back at High Powers and all Browning's design, as well as what Leon did with the 509 series, Safe Pistol, LEPD adopted it. You kind of back engineered, like, what does everything sort of need? If you can break down, what are the areas? What do you actually do? And how low does it start out? How budget is it to maybe start out that I get a 320 back that I don't think is going to shoot my pecker off?
That you can regain real trust with. We just ended an introductory, I should say, not we with our FFL partner, the High Power Medic, just ended an introductory service on the P320. It's called the Sear Stabilization and Safety Margin Enhancement Service, and that was about 90 days at $165, which is, kind of unheard of for professional, service like this. Mm-hmm. And it's now at a permanent offering price of $276. And that is a complete servicing of the handgun. And what I mean is that's a complete detail strip. Everything gets thrown in an ultrasonic cleaner. Any other springs that we don't address as part of that standard service are also handled as part of that. And, and there's a little bit of a cost for additional springs if those are due. We have come up with a recommended spring change-out intervals for every spring in the handgun. And the primary thing that we did that I think was a lot different, including what the FBI tried, was we did not go looking for where's the problem here. And the reason is because you can come up dry approaching this from that direction. We came at this problem from the standpoint of where are margins that we can make stronger. So in other words, the sear springs are responsible for having that sear be and stay where it's supposed to be, when it's supposed to be there, without fail. As if it's in John Browning's designs, he mandated it mechanically by the geometry of the parts that cooperate together. The parts don't have a choice. In the P320, the sear has a choice, and that choice is only happening if sear pressure is insufficient.
So you found one or two main problem areas and one or two kind of safety margin areas, let's say. So one or two main ones and another couple areas that you could address making safer. Is that basically correct? You found a couple different areas to have safety improvements, let's say, if we want to be PC.
Sear spring pressure substantially upgraded. The actual metal to metal engagement of the sear and the striker, how much metal is overlapping metal and how much metal has to clear, that adds margin. And we duplicated basically what FN did with John Browning's designs in his striker fired pistols. And that adds about 40% more metal to metal engagement surface area. And that is a margin of safety. The striker has a little bit of ability to like move right and left, in the slide. We did a lot of our work with a back plate on the slide that we basically halved so that it would hold everything in, but we could still see everything.
Okay.
And what we noticed was, that can be manipulated. Well, okay, anything that can be manipulated, you have to assume, because of Murphy's Law, can and will at some point be manipulatable or manipulated. So we effected a modification, and to just say something real good about my cooperation with my co-founding partner Slav, who actually lives in Bulgaria. The spring modification was diagnosed here. He diagnosed he's a gunsmith in Bulgaria, and P320s are prominent there. And he diagnosed a modification that expands that sear striker metal to metal engagement area. And then we designed over here a way to affect that change that, creates a discouragement for that left-right, thing. The left-right, the interesting thing about the P320 is I'm not sure one single thing by itself and in and of itself can create an uncommanded discharge.
But in unusual circumstances, in a dog pile or in or out of a holster with certain pressure at a certain angle, X plus Y plus Z might occasionally make a kaboom.
A combination of things. And as an example, the OEM sear springs, SIG classifies these as a consumable part that should be replaced every 3 years or 3,000 cycles, not rounds, cycles. That means every time you've done this and let it go, that's a cycle. If you're dry firing, whatever it is. And they have published that their sear spring performance will start to degrade, or optimal sear spring performance will start to degrade after 3,000 cycles, which is a very short service life.
Yeah, competitors that dry fire are running the slide like crazy just in dry fire alone, let alone
you better have a bag full of those, right?
Yeah.
So we never approached this as if we were looking for one thing. We came up with 9 different what we call safety margin add backs, and these encompass sear spring pressure, sear striker overlap, correct maintenance and replacement of springs on a just like you change the oil in your car. And the OEM sear springs have a reputation for deformation, for deforming, and the way they live in that FCU if those sear springs deform, they don't have any way to deform. I mean, that means they start to change their shape. They bulge. They may start to unwind themselves because they're trying to get themselves out of their situation, you know, or whatever. Any deformation runs the risk of those coils of those two springs getting too cozy with each other and interfering with each other. So if I see the comment there, wherever that came from, I don't know how it got there.
And Sig, these are none of our. We're merely trying to solve potential issues, of course.
What we're trying to do is accomplish John Browning level reliability, and when I say reliability, we're talking about reliable function that does not involve firearms misbehaving. And
and it sounds like, honestly, the guys out there competing with their AXG expensive 320 whatever version 18,000 that came out, it sounds like they probably need to be at least checked maintenance wise when you guys are doing all these upgrades anyway. Hey, let's look at every spring involved and let's see if something's kinked up, twisted, or bent the wrong direction, or it's way too stretched out, or whatever. It sounds like for the guys that are high round count guys, like that's maintenance that really should be looked at anyway, let alone the discharge problem.
Our recommendation for change-out intervals for springs is available at bhspringsolutions.com. There's a printable version, and all the other 8 we call safety margin add-backs, which a lot has to do with owner, practices. For example, don't oil that sear area. Don't oil that striker area. Just don't do it. If you do, it will collect black shit and it will get gummy. And this is the last thing the P320 needs.
Okay, so let me ask this then. Out of the bunch, and I think you had 60 this week, you told me something like that. Out of the bunches you've been getting, are you seeing a big variance? Let's talk about the main safety margin. I think it was something like 0.5, and you're making it 1.4 millimeters of metal contact on contact to make sure it doesn't slip.
Normal sear striker overlap that we're I want to try to make this stop here. Normal sear striker overlap is we've measured at 0.9 to 1 millimeters, and after the modification to the sear striker overlap is about 1.45.
Okay, so that's obviously a huge difference.
Yes.
From the 320s that have come in, have you seen some that were safer than others where, like, my God, there's, this, have you seen a big variance in what's coming in, or even in the gunked up, striker spring area and stuff where some look like, hey, they haven't been used that much, they're okay. And others are like, oh my God, this is either because it's been used a lot, or maybe it was a newer one or an older model. Have you seen variances?
Yes. And one of the big reasons why the High Power Medic did a very, very low introductory service price for these is because we know there's somewhere between 40 and 50 different variations of this firearm. Mm-hmm. When you count barrel lengths and calibers and metal frames and polymers, and we know that there's at least 40. And we had been exposed to, at the time that we started offering the service, and the sear springs as a product just themselves, because we do consider that the most must have in order to start to have a restored trust in this picture is that. But with that many different models and a history that's gone about 7 years, 8 years now, we wanted to make sure we got fast exposure to any other possible variables. And what we found is there have been parts inside that have been modified by SIG in terms of how they make them, how they execute them. They've chased this problem in ways that have not necessarily been public.
So without admitting things, you've literally been able to see in different models or over time some quiet rolling changes, perhaps?
Yes, absolutely. And for us and for the High Power Medic, that represents a learning curve we had to flatten. And we wanted to flatten it as quickly as we possibly could. And so the very low introductory price served that purpose. But one, among the things that we knew that the core principles of our recommendations were highly unlikely to change. Where our recommendations came from was a combination of things. Came from this. We call that the Bible with a small b. That is every John Browning patent for every handgun he ever designed. Leon Hubert's design work, and the striker-fired pistol, the FNS9, which is the Leon Hubert design, specifically being a compare to firearm for us when we looked at the p320. And also we looked at what's the spring pressure in pounds that keeps a sear in place on a high power, for example. When a high power is de-safety, it relies only on the sear spring to maintain the position of the sear until you want kaboom. And the spring pressure on the sear in a high power, it comes out about 4.5 pounds. The spring pressure on a SIG is 1.2. And we wanted to see, when we found that we take that as reliable data that this is an area where this could stand, some reinforcement. and sear springs that are more persuasive, that are more of a mandate that the sear is going to be where you want it to be when you need it to be there. So today, after the modifications that happened that the high power medic performs, the pressure on the sear from the springs is about 4.3 pounds. It's right in that same neighborhood as a high power. And
so now we got more to make it simple to layman's, me and some other people. I'm just a shooter, man. Right. You got way more positive metal-to-metal engagement, so it's not going to slip. And we went from 1.2.
That keeps the striker where you want it, cocked.
And now we went from 1.2 to about 4.3 pounds on the striker spring pressure. So we got a constant pressure where we want it to be before it goes. Right?
Yes. And to this point, we started the P320 project in July. And to this point, we have through manual manipulations and cycling, we have well over 5,000 manual manipulations on one of our test pistols. We have seen no deformation of our sear springs at this point. So
what do I get if I send you my pistol? I get peace of mind. It's not going to go boom unless I pull the trigger. And what is the trigger going to be like? Is it going to be, instead of the mush, I don't like SIG triggers. I can't shoot them like I used to when I got back in the pistol. You get a defined wall. Is it kind of FNS 509-ish, where you come up, you take up the slack, you get to a heavy but a defined wall, but with a decentish break, or what is it?
That this is not a simple to explain subject either, and I'll do my best to make it quick. Okay. The SIG trigger is a master at manipulating trigger scales. And we have noticed big variances if you're pulling the trigger with like what I call an analog or just a spring scale as compared to a digital. Now, the reason for this, I tracked this down. And why is this so variable? Because we take a high power or a 1911 and we use either our analog or a digital, and these things are just tight. I mean, their result is, and then you pull a P320 and you got this analog telling you that it's 9 pounds and you've got this digital telling you it's 5 1/4. And we've seen this multiple times. Okay. So the reason for that is because every P320 is going to have a little bit of over travel past the break. That over travel past the break is getting into the most compressed state of the sear springs, which means it's going to be the highest resistance.
And it's kind of not straight back too. It kind of like rocks up in a weird way, right?
Depending on the trigger. There's multiple different triggers that have appeared on these, and there's aftermarkets. But the digital scale is for whatever reason it seems to ignore that over travel past the break. And of course, your finger doesn't care what the over travel past the break is. After the break, the slide cycling, I mean, you're not even thinking about, that. You're thinking about letting it go and resetting and going again. But the digital scales seem to be more impervious to not getting manipulated by any over travel and the resistance related to that over travel. And the analog, just it won't ignore it. So everything I'm telling you is using a digital scale. Typically we see incoming P320s that have a trigger break weight in the 2 3/4 to 3 pound range, and they're leaving with, on average, 5 to 5.5.
Okay.
And so that's the typical result that we're.
Can you relate it to what the trigger feels like in the break? Like, we talking Glockish, like a well-worn in Glock, kind of is that poundage range, not a new in box, or is it like kind of 509-ish but a little lighter? Like, where you basically got take up a defined wall and then a pretty decent break?
The break is extremely crisp. And part of the reason for that is there's multiple polish points that affect that. So an internals polishing has now become a standard of the high power medic service that we're recommending, and it really cleans up everything in a safe, quality way. See, you can take pressure off of a sear in any firearm, and I promise you the trigger finger will dig it, love it. You do this and you go, oh God, that's so good. And you have these visions of shooting 10 all through the same hole and, ridiculous stuff like that. But, we are all, I mean, I'm that way. I mean, I just can't help it. Right. But the end result, I liken the SIG P320 trigger out of the box as like blissful as pulling your finger into a bowl of mashed potatoes.
Well, yeah, I want predictable. I want to know where the break is, not oh bang, cool. Like, I don't want to be mushing through guesswork. And that's just what I've learned in the defensive trigger. I'm all about the CCW self-defense side. I mean, I've done some USPSA, I've done some IDPA, but I'm not going out there to be a world-class competitor. I want to feel safe carrying a gun and it not going bang until I decide it. I know when it's going to, and I can feel it in the reset, and I can feel I'm at the wall. I'm going to break it again, and it's only going to break when I know it is. And even 365 and 320 triggers is kind of like, did it, bang.
Yep.
How mushy is the mashed potatoes today? And it probably depends on the temperature outside too.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I bet you can feel it.
The exact trigger you're talking about is the trigger described in John Browning's last patented handgun, which was also his last patent period. And it was the predecessor to what became the P35 or the high power. And he described it as there's a short amount of trigger travel that meets increased resistance. And that increased resistance is your warning that the weapon is about to fire. Okay. And I would say that would be the best way to explain the trigger that results post-modification with our recommendations.
So it will be a good defensive trigger, and for people that like a defined wall, even competition-wise, they're going to know when the break is if they have to make a 12-yard head box shot or something farther, or something requiring a bit more precision. I would
100%.
And you're actually carrying your modified 320 now, so you feel safe with it.
100%.
So if you're literally carrying a chamber loaded on you, without you're giving him the endorsement that now it's got all the engagement, it's got the shear spring pressure, it has way more metal on metal contact that nothing's going to go slip if I happen to get a scuffle in a level 3 holster, and it pushes on the hood because I got a weapon mounted light and a red dot and at an exact 33-degree angle of Masons to make a kaboom and a bad thing happen.
Okay, now I'm gonna confess something. I have been carrying one for now about 8 weeks. I have carried it condition 1 every day. It stays in condition 1. I've carried it horizontal shoulder holster, inside the waistband holder, and off body carry bag. And the back plate of a P320, you can file off or Dremel off a couple millimeters off of the bottom of it, and you will be able to see the sear striker engagement.
Okay.
And mine is modified that way, and I can see constantly, anytime I want to, I have 100% sear striker engagement. That is where my confidence comes from, because I know we had 100% sear striker engagement when I was throwing that thing off the house, dragging it down the road, and could not make it misbehave. And
so
the other
instead
reason,
of letting it rust in the back of the safe, or if it was your chosen, I mean, some people, that wasn't their carry gun, but they liked them for competition. They got them decked out, AXGs, extra triggers in it, and all the things, right? And they already put a bunch of money into it.
Right.
If you don't want a kaboom and getting kicked off and banned from your USPSA IPSC group or something, send it off, get it fixed, and now you can feel safe with it, right?
Yes, and I want to tell you something else too, if you don't mind. Is the high power medic, who is also an employee of ours. We're pretty tight, and he test fires all of the service handguns that he has serviced out here at my place, and I have gotten the opportunity to some days, to test fire, to be the one pulling the trigger. And the other times, it's been Dave. And I've had as many as 9 in a day to test fire. And we test fire them into a target because we want to test fire for accuracy and for reliability. And when we first got going in the P320s, Dave walks in here one day and he goes, "Mark, I swear these are the most accurate damn handguns I've ever shot." And really impressive, Dan. I mean, I'm not pulling anybody's leg. These are easy to shoot, accurate handguns. And SIG has done the job as far as barrel stability at the slide barrel bushing. It is tight. It is still. That is perfect for accuracy. They have done so much well in that handgun. And post our modifications, we both have shot crazy accuracy when we've test fired them. And the other thing that we have a short video showing like 11 of these things that were all ready to ship back to their owners. There was not two like kind guns there. Okay. Out of 11 of them. I mean, it's phenomenal what your options are, for, what you can do with that one FCU is crazy. It really is commendable.
So 1 minute answer from you. If there's a LE department out there that they right now are debating, do I trade all these in at a huge loss, which is questionable anyway, to put them back on the market? Too unsafe for us, but you go ahead, civilians. We'll send EMS when you shoot yourself in the leg. Or, and not only is the cost of the firearm to switch platforms huge for a department, say we're talking 1,000 or even a smaller, a 250 size department, but then they have to change their holsters. They got to get Safari Land on and say, okay, we give us $7 per each of these $120 light bearing, red dot bearing holsters, and towards new ones, like new magazine pouches possibly, and everything else that goes with it. If you had a smaller department or even a big one that would contract with you to do so many each week, you could work with them. You're willing to talk to them and see what you could do and maybe retrofit. So now the LE department doesn't have to put all that cost in. They just got to put in the cost of your modifications to make them safe.
Yes, we have a volume schedule, or the high power medic has a volume schedule as far as pricing for the service. If there's multiples and they are all the same model, then there are certain efficiencies that can be accomplished, in that situation. It's a little bit of a different tiered sort of a volume discount if it's an owner who has 5 and they're all 5 different models.
Yeah.
That's a different day. But the answer to your question is yes. We are talking to some LE agencies. We are talking also to some FFLs who have a significant amount of P320s in their inventory that they've locked away. And, some of these FFLs have banned the 320 from their shooting ranges.
Yep.
And I don't know how to say this. I mean, it's going to piss somebody off somewhere, inevitably, what I'm going to tell you. But the FBI came up after 29 pages and decided this is a defective design, and we don't agree. I don't agree. With our modifications, I would not be carrying a defective design the way I'm carrying this one. I don't carry it appendix. I don't carry anything appendix, but that's
I'm just going to say my opinion on it was there was the 250 DAO platform. And quite frankly, I think they rushed taking an already established platform and trying to re-engineer it into a striker platform. And when you rush something like that, bad things might happen. But I want to change the subject, Mark, because we only want to go an hour, 10 minutes maybe.
Sure.
Let's talk about some of the other interesting projects you've been doing as of late, some other Browning, some of Leon Hubert's designs. And guys not familiar with him, like I've been putting the Bread 84 in a bunch of videos, and before they all dry up, man, great pistol. You should probably get one of those Italian IRS ones before the prices are going to shoot up like crazy. Great pistols, but I think you've had some little baby Brownings on, you little 25s, 1903s, 1908s. I'd like you to talk about the 1910/1922, 1950s, which are all basically 1910s, I believe, and talk about some of those, and then a little bit into Leon Hubert with the Mark III, the 84, the BDA, the FNS, the 509, the SFS system. Let's eventually get to that. And then the BDA, the Browning double actions, that double action high powers nobody knows about. In the thumbnail was a double action only compact. So not only rarer than the DASA pistols, but the DAO pistol and the compact. Well, you won't see the compact on my channel, but you will be seeing a totally redone, sent back to me from Mark, a extremely rare Browning double action only high power, and it's the coolest looking Darth Vader pistol ever, which you kind of see in the thumbnail. Well, now mine's got the longer grip, but it's a very cool looking pistol. So just kind of talk about some of Browning's early designs and then kind of get into Leon Hubert a bit, if you don't mind.
One of the attributes of all of John Browning's designs, including the high power and Leon Hubert's designs, is when you put a firearm in an inside the waistband holster, just as an example, if you have a 1911 and you put it in that holster and then you take it out and you put a Glock in there, you will notice that extra 1/8 of an inch dimensional width.
Oh yeah.
Your side will feel it. And Browning, one of the things of he was a master, period, and something near deity, but one of the things that he was superior and remains superior to even still today, and Leon is his equal as the world has ever seen, if there is such a thing, is these guys could make a firearm thin, dimensional. I'm talking dimensional width. And still today, you will not find a 32 ACP or a 25 ACP or a 380 ACP thinner dimensionally than John Browning's designs. They don't exist. Once you go polymer, you create the need for more weight in the slide. And when you create a need for more weight, you have created a virtual mismatch or an impossibility of making anything that thin. You can't really make the frames as thin when you go polymer either, and which you don't want a slide that's not as wide as the frames. That would be kind of hokey.
Well, so, yeah, until recently we were always like slimming down military pistols to be police pistols, then maybe a compact version of that, not really made for concealed carry. And then if you look at like a 1908, 1910, for the average civilian, that is probably easy to carry. I mean, wasn't Dillinger carrying one of them? Easy to carry, thin, so it doesn't hurt, and it gives you all the firepower that a typical civilian would likely need in a defensive gun use. Like, I mean, honestly, like a modern 1910, I mean, it did, start World War I and cause World War II. I mean, of course, the families caused those above them, but from a concealed carry standpoint, do we really need more than that?
I think there's a very, very strong argument that one firearm is not enough.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the way I'll first start to try to answer that question. Okay. I have a video demonstration. I've not put this on YouTube, but I have a video demonstration of me pulling my hand out of my pants pocket with the same pistol that John Browning was known to be his preference for carry, which was his little vest pocket 25 ACP, and then a high power in an inside the waistband holster. And my hand comes out of my pocket with that little vest pocket. It gets emptied and dropped, and I go for the high power. And by 5 seconds, I've dispensed about 25 rounds out of 2 guns.
Yeah, that
is really, really fast capability. And no, I don't think a 25 ACP is a man stopper. However, because these handguns are so thin, they can be kept on so many different options and places depending on your wardrobe and the time of year, that an attacker would not necessarily see that there. It wouldn't think it would come from where.
If you think of clothing at the time period, we're in 3-piece suits with a vest, and so a real vest pocket's right there. And if it's thin, it's not like this huge bulge. So, the wardrobe back in the early 1900s maybe lent itself to carry that way, and the thinness there, versus nowadays maybe we want that for appendix carry. But I'd be happy with the 1910 in my vest for most of the year, to be honest with you. If it's a safe design, especially if it was a modern design. And didn't you repair someone's 1903 or 1908 fairly recently?
Yes. We had the high power medic had a Colt 1903. It's called a pocket hammerless.
Yeah.
And yes, and I before Dave came with that one, I had read the specific patent for that and studied up on it. So I knew the orientation of the parts when I got to it. And it is absolute gorgeous design work. This guy was an absolute total genius. And it is our pleasure, honestly, to work on those firearms, and all of John Browning's designed handguns. We are covering them. And
so someone's got one in the back of the closet to hand me down, the family member that died, and suddenly there's a handkerchief wrapped around a 1903, a 1908, a 1910, 1922, 1955, which I think were all just kind of reissues of the 1910 in different versions or barrel lengths kind of thing. Anything like that, you've now gone over all the patents. You have all the springs. You can do all those, right?
And we have complete spring kit products coming.
Okay.
Of our own design also.
Do you think a modern 1910 could be brought to market? I would like to see a stack and a half magazine, mind you, because I think the market would demand 10 rounds, not like I mean, and people, high capacity magazines. Oh my God. It's called the Savage 1910. 10 fast for women's self-defense, you sexist. The Savage 1910 ads were for women to be able to shoot 10 rounds as fast as they could pull the trigger to be able to defend themselves, to be the great equalizer. Okay. So 1910 Savages had 10-round double stack magazines. Okay. So those are standard magazines, and they always have been traditionally. So there's my rant on that.
The 25 ACP Grand Thumb's buddy, the guy with the glasses, that he's both a competition shooter extraordinaire and a comedian always, right? In his videos, he called it a snatch gun.
Also known as
prostitute pistol.
Why the C-Comp sells so well in Latin America is because those no sights, no hurt so bad when he put it in a prison pocket.
Yeah. Yes,
not that I'm recommending that method of carry to any of my subscribers, but you know, if you had to turn yourself in to the authorities and you could pay them off, and I'm having some fun now, and I've done videos lately for my Central and South American friends and followers out there. Hello, Sean Bain and David Paul and Yucca Kingdom, and anyone else that wants to join in. We appreciate you. So wrap up with the 1910s if you think a modern one would be good, and then let's start talking a little more about Leon Hubert, if you don't mind.
You know, all of those handguns of Brownings, and that would be the vest pocket, you know, of course the 1911, of course, you know, the high power, which you know, today when we you know, fully BH a high power, there's almost nothing except BH components in that firearm, you know, at this point, and many of those derived from Leon Hubert.
Mm-hmm. He did the Mark III like redesign because it went.
Yes.
I mean, Browning, I think his patent was like 22 or 23, and then eventually P35, that was Saeed, right? And then eventually you get Leon Hubert did the Mark III. I don't know Leon if he was involved in much before that or not.
Yeah, Leon Hubert did blueprint the Mark III, the last version of the Browning high power.
Okay.
And with its updates and upgrades, and I can assure you there has never been an individual breathe air who knows the high power better than him.
And that's actually where the SFS system that you offer, that I have now, that you put on my high power, my English.
Yep.
Leon designed that, right?
Yes, he did.
Did they was it only 100 and 150 total, or that actually marked FN pistols that got imported to America with the SFS system from FN? Right.
No, the Leon left FN in 1993. And in around 2002, there was a request to FN for a pistol trials. I think it was Finland. And they wanted specifically an SFS high power to compete, you know, and wanted, you know, so FN actually had to go back and buy 5,000 kits from Leon. Because what happened was, FN had decided to get out of the metal frame handgun business because they felt they could no longer be competitive with, you know, I don't know how you say this.
The Austrian guy.
Well, the Austrian guy and the better economy of production in Eastern Europe, specifically the CZ75.
Okay.
And it didn't look like it was in the cards, I don't think, for them to stay in the metal handgun market. And so Leon left in 93, and he left with a lot of stuff that he designed while he was there that FN no longer had any interest in, and it was part of his exit deal. And the SFS system was part of it. At one point, the SFS system was the next generation operating system that FN conceived for the high power. Specifically,
right. They put it in some of the manuals, but they only made so many, right?
They made 5,000 in 2003, 2004. And basically, it's hard if you send a pistol that doesn't exist to a pistol competition. That kind of doesn't make sense. It needed to exist as a product. So now, they made 5,000.
Leon also did, you were telling me, there was a Beretta and FN and a whole Browning thing and anything where the BDA was made that has the slide-mounted safety decocker, which is basically an 84. Italy Beretta actually made them all, but you would find FN mark slides on BDAs, and the 84, like I have, all of that was, or a lot of that was also Leon as well, correct?
Yeah, yes, where that starts at is, you know, you remember back in the Cold War days, it seemed like we were always being told that, you know, the Soviets had something bigger and better than we had, you know, or whoever. And what became known as the CZ-75 had become somewhat of a legend, but it wasn't to Western, you know, the Western side of Europe yet. And it was only, you know, it was just people had heard of it mostly. And so then the CZ-75 sees the light of day, and it's double action, single action function. And there was this fever for double action, single action. And because, you know, you can carry it, hammer forward, but a trigger pull makes it go bang. It doesn't have to be, you know, cocked, you know, manually or anything, you know, single action, like if the hammer's forward. So the SFS system was a superior solution for that. The ability to be hammer forward, pull the safety off, hammer cocks by itself, and every trigger pull is the same.
Yeah, and guys, we can't show it on the live stream, but if you would like to see that, the high power, there's a video, the enhanced high power I got back from Mark with the SFS system. I explain it. We have some fun. You see it be high power being used in the background, Beverly Hills Cop, and all that. So, if you want to learn more about how it actually works, take a look at that video.
Okay, the rest of the story about the Beretta 84 actually starts with the 1968 Gun Control Act and the 1910, which was being marketed as the Browning 1955 model. This is no longer cool to import into the United States. And FN had no interest in moving production of that gun to the United States. So it got discontinued finally in the middle 80s. Actually, they stopped making them at all, but they stopped being imported here. So Browning wanted a 380 pistol. And this timing with the CZ-75 seeing the light of day, they decided they wanted it to be double action, single action. And the Browning BDA 380 was designed by Leon. And that was my first introduction to Leon Hubert, because I would have sworn, I grew up on Browning firearms, and I would have sworn when I got that pistol in like 1991, I would have sworn that was a John Browning designed handgun, because of how just everything about it just seems like it is tight. The way the action works, the way it just everything about it, you know. And then I found out, no, this is a guy named Leon Hubert. And well, okay, so he comes up with this design. Browning wants to market it, and FN had no place to produce it. Their production capacity at that time was maxed out. So they shopped the design, and Beretta was buying. And so as part of the deal, Beretta was to produce them and sell them then back to FN, you know, who then, you know, sold them to Browning or sent them to Browning. And in the course of that deal, Beretta was able to use the blueprints, modify the safety so it wasn't a decocker necessarily, and open the open top slide up, and that's the only differences. Other than that, these are identical guns.
Yeah, I want a BDA. The prices on bidding always jump up last minute. I've been, I follow them often.
Mhm.
Maybe someday one will come my way, and those are cool because you'll find. I mean, they're marked Beretta, they're marked Italy on the frame, right? You'll find the slides are marked FN or Browning or both.
Yep.
So you literally will have, oh man, this is my Beretta Browning FN.
Mhm.
What do you mean, man? It's a schizophrenic gun. So,
Yeah.
but it's the perfect size weight carry. I probably will next summer carry my Beretta 84. They're like kind of just the perfect recoil, the perfect capacity, a long enough barrel that the 380 can have decent enough power for at least summertime. If we're not talking heavy winter and stuff, and that's a great pistol. He did the FNS and the 509, and LAPD got the 509.
Yep.
And let's get into if you want to say anything about those, but also the double action. Since I have acquired one of the extremely rare, there's no double action high powers, they're only single action. You don't know what you're talking about, boy. I'm like, here you go. I mean, I did that at the store. There's an English guy that works at he wasn't like that, quite frankly, but the English guy works at my store, and he's like, yeah, I carried a high power in the military. Okay, have you ever seen one of these? I'm like, double action high power? He's like, what? I'm like, a double action high power.
Yeah. Yep. In 1984, there was a U.S. pistol trials, and the requirement was double action, single action. Prior to that, request for handguns to be considered by the United States military, or the Army at the time. Prior to that, I think most of the gun world assumed that the next United States handgun for our military would be a high power. Naturally, all of NATO was using it. So I think a lot of people just thought that this was be a formality, but then they required double action, single action. And Leon actually designed 3 different scenarios for those pistol trials. One of them was high power with SFS, and the United States military was wowed by it, and it did not specifically meet their requirement, and so they said, we can't let that compete. Yeah. And then he created another system on a high power called a fast action, and the fast action was a situation where the hammer is forward. The first little bit of the trigger pull caused release of the hammer, which cocked itself, and you keep pulling the trigger and it fires. So again, he eliminated that double action, single action transition of your trigger finger, distinguishing and timing those 2 different trigger pulls in the first 2 shots. And so in his head, he was doing better than double action, single action. You can carry hammer forward, right? So, and they rejected that one. And then the BDA 9, which was actually the first version that competed in the U.S. pistol trials, was the GPDA, it was called. And those are extremely, extremely rare. And we've actually seen one of the actual pistols and serviced it that was submitted for those pistol trials in 1984. Oh, wow. Eventually, they were sold by the U.S. government. There was 20 of them. And I think maybe 10. But
so, do you think those actually 80s pistols were the actual HPDAs, HP-DAs then?
Yeah,
you have was like Hipster Tactical's BDA 9 you worked on, which is a 90s pistol. Do you think the BDA 9 and what I have is the BDAO then? Because getting the name right is hard.
Yeah, they were chasing the market because the high power at its peak was in 92 countries, militaries or security forces, or law enforcement, and we had parts of FBI, we had parts of special forces in this country that used the high power too, and so it was extraordinarily popular. Okay, so the CZ75 sees the light of day, and it wows the whole world. So everybody's got to have double action, single action. So Leon chased the double action, single action with superior single action, no difference between first and second trigger pull. And that got rejected by the U.S. military. So in a really big hurry, he designed what they called then the GPDA. That was the third entrant by FN into the 84 pistol trials. And these were very hurried. This was a very hurried design. The BDA-9 was like a second generation of that gun, like when Leon actually had time to refine it more. And that birthed the BDA-9, or HPDA, it's also called. That's your double action, single action version. Most of your dimensions exterior wise are exactly high power. You have to remember, you know, he's also the guy that blueprinted the Mark III high power. He had access to technology, but everything inside is different. There's not a shared part in the whole, you know, in a high power and in that BDA.
Pretty thin pistol, especially in the slide area. So
yes,
even though it's like 32 ounces, 31, 32 ounces, it still carries lighter because it's thin in the slide. I mean, I got a Glock 48 holster for it.
Yep.
So that tells you, for what looks like side by side, maybe a Beretta, like a 92, guys, it's nowhere near as thick. It's a little thick in the grips for Matt Hipster Tactical. You can look at his video on the DA essays. I'll be doing videos of mine, the double action only. But that's when they brought him back in the 90s, and he really had time to work on it. And it was adopted, I want to say Finland, even though it's a Belgian pistol. I think, is it
yes,
Finland Army?
Yep.
Okay. So the Finnish Army did use it, and they kind of, you know, basically just getting away from it in the last few years, selling off their, you know, kind of last stocks that are out there as they bring in, I think, Glocks. But
the double action only version happened only because there was a period there in the late 80s that it looked like the market was going to double action only.
Right.
So Leon's reaction was, well, I can do that. And so he took the BDA-9, basically removed the sear completely and changed a couple parts, and you got double action only.
Yeah. And it's smooth trigger pull. Now you got that long reset, but if you grew up on revolvers, if you were NYPD going, oh, maybe we don't want to go to Glocks. Yep. Maybe we want something a little safer, and they're used to that longer trigger pull and a little more round accountability, even perhaps. Yep. It was a thing. And Masayob has talked about this. He just did a video recently about double action only. He was mostly talking about revolvers, but with NYPD and other departments, and why that was kind of a thinking at the time. Well, because you had your 1911 guys, but a whole lot of law enforcement was still very much revolver. I mean, some switched in the 70s to like Model 59s and stuff, but some still in the early 90s were still revolver. I mean, hell, even FBI was still Model 13s until 94 or something like that. I mean, they were still floating around, a lot of agents with revolvers. So that was kind of the thing. So it made some sense. I can't believe I was in a gun store and I'm like, what's that at my range? And he didn't know what it was. And I'm like, let's do some horse trading. Sucks that you can't find magazines, but it's a great looking pistol.
That BDAO of yours is the designer's by the bed gun. So that BDAO is what he has by the bed. And Slav and I have been, you know, numerous times to Belgium to his facility. And with the last time, I think the last or the second to the last time we were there, he had just had an attempted break-in, and in the middle of the night, and that led us to the question, you know, what's your by the bed gun? And he went and got it, and you know, my partner Slav asked him, you know, why this gun, and his answer was, because if I can't figure out if I'm experiencing a home break-in or if I'm in a dream, and I can't figure that out immediately because I wake up, you know, from REM sleep and I'm confused, I don't want a hair trigger, guys.
Yeah.
I want as much margin for mistakes as I can get, you know, while I'm trying to figure out, is this real or is this a nightmare? And, you know, it happens to everybody and you can't control for that.
And now
So
that you've seen all the stuff that he's designed and his way of thinking and pistol designs with only 33, 34 parts like mine and stuff like that, you put him right up there as like he really is kind of the next, he was really the next Browning, right?
what I can tell you for sure, because we have designed systems with him now, is he thinks like this guy in every way. I mean, if I believed in reincarnation, I would be doing a case study on him, as this is a reincarnated John Browning.
I've reached out to 2 writers now, and I'm trying to get a hold of Ian Forgotten Weapons. Like, he needs to do some on, like, maybe these Browning double action, these HPDAs, these BDA 9s or BDAOs like mine, but really to tell Leon's story. And even like we get, you know, FN just had they're trying to market the 503 Knowledge Shot Show and stuff. They're doing internal hammer fired guns, FN Reflex, and that's my gun. That's the BDAO. I mean, they're not even doing striker fired. The 509 is, but the Reflex XL, now the 503, those are internal hammer guns like Browning, and you know, talking about the BDAO of Leon's, that's really kind of their heritage, and that's what they're doing. That's what was at SHOT Show. Internal hammer fired pistol.
Why not? Why not? I mean, they should have the template for it.
They should.
Yeah.
There's some marketing issues. FN, let's help you out. Why do you guys hire me and my absorb marketing your business and bring Leon back before he's gone? The guy's what, 85?
Yeah.
And maybe bring me on from a shooter's perspective, what the actual market is looking for at $500 and $700 price point pistols and texture and shooting and metal sights and metal magazines and things like that. Just giving FN some crap because they need some marketing help, quite frankly. They need to mesh with what the American market wants. And I don't know if FN America talks to FN Europe and what FN's honestly kind of like, here's this high power that's not really a high power. It's a totally different pistol, and it's 40 ounces instead of slim and 30 ounces. So you can't really carry the new high power. Where's the aluminum frame red dot version of that? I don't know. Like, and or they live off a scar from video games from 20 years ago. I don't really know what the pathway is, I guess, for FN America.
Let me give you just a little bit of their history. In the 70s, FN and the Browning Arms Company merged. And everybody says FN bought Browning, but I want to tell you, on any given day, I've never been able to tell who's the dog and who's the tail. Because the Browning Arms Company has some incredible significance in that relationship. And I think they made a very, very great merger, but when they made that merger, FN was maxed out on production. I mean, they had no place to produce the BDA 380. That's why it got shopped and to Beretta. By 1990, FN was not as well heeled anymore, and I don't think I'm disclosing anything that's not actual public knowledge, but they were not financially in the best of positions by just 15 years later. And what had changed was the economy of manufacturing out of Eastern Europe, because the CZ75 saw the light of day, so they had a hard time competing in any pistol trials, because we all know that you meet the minimum requirements, you shoot, you eject, you don't malfunction, and the lowest bidder wins. And they were no longer competitive. And with Glock, they were no longer competitive with CZ75s. And, they went from, they couldn't make enough handguns. They were licensing in Argentina, around this time because they couldn't fulfill the need. And by the time they got to the 90 to 92, 93 time frame, they were looking for, how are we going to compete with these changes in the market, and they didn't any longer have a bulging manufacturing, pistol scene anymore. It completely turned upside down. And that was the reason why they made the decision, I believe, to get out of metal framed handguns as much as possible, because how do you compete with something like, Glock's lower, and I'm talking about the plastic part, that costs $4 to produce. And I'm talking about the plastic injection molded grip.
I think 320s were $212 to the U.S. military, by the way, and that was really because we can do silencers and machine gun ammo and everything else. It wasn't. There was some funny business going on. I think certain people got jobs.
I read 175.
Oh, did you? Okay. So, boy, now that I know that striker fired 9s cost $175 to $212, and you want me to pay $650 with friggin' plastic sights, certain companies, that's why I'm like, yeah, $300, $350 can get me a damn good gun from other companies, people give them shit, but I'm going to get the Taurus TX9C. They're coming out with a new duty grade, they're saying, and they've done reliability testing, and we will see, but I think so. It's not like it's some secret science or incredibly expensive to make a striker fired 9mm pistol nowadays. So, anyway, Mark, let's wrap this up in the next few minutes. I want to ask just a couple questions, and if anyone has any questions, you got 3 minutes to get them in. Mark, I'm a hardworking Joe. I got 2 kids. I only have so much disposable income. I get to buy myself a nice pistol every birthday and every Christmas where the wife doesn't divorce me. Say I got 750 bones to buy a high power, or my first high power. Do I buy an FN high power? Do I buy a Springfield high power? Do I buy an Inglis and send it to you to redo all the parts? Or maybe one of the other Turkish companies? If you got $750, what do you do if you're getting your first or maybe your second high power?
I would look for, do you have $750 to make it all you want it to be?
Yes, you got a 700. You either buy something nice new, or I buy a cheapo and send it off to you, or maybe I hope to get lucky. And we're talking ducks as measure of unit. I may have misspoke earlier. We are talking about theoretical ducks used as a measure of unit to buy a theoretical Christmas present for yourself.
Okay. I would look in the used market for an FM Argentine or an Arcus 94 Bulgarian, a Korean.
I don't want the square trigger guard. So some of them is a no on that. So
okay.
Maybe the Argentinians, because I wouldn't mind going down there to pick up some women and eat some fried steak sandwiches.
I would suggest to watch for one of those. A Gersan MCP 35 would not be a bad choice. I have to tell you, you can get what I consider my personal favorite striker fired handgun, if we're talking a duty size handgun, is Leon's design, FN's FNS9. The market is fairly depressed on those because everybody forgot them after the 509 came out, which is really an FNS9 with a couple. I
had one. I used to compete with one, and I sold it because it didn't have night sights, and replacement night sights are expensive.
Yeah, I would, man. I mean, with $750, you can do it an FNS9. I just saw one that was like a new old stock.
I'm going to plug another YouTuber because he needs some more followers. A good friend of Paul Harrell, guys. Espresso with Saul just did a 509 video today. He just got a 509, I think a tactical compact, something like that. So go give Espresso with Saul, because he could use some more subscribers, and just because I'm a big Paul Harrell fan, he was a friend of Paul's. And, I got in his comments, I'm like, so, it's a good, safe pistol. Not everyone loved the trigger, And then some have like LE version. Some of them have a totally different, like a dingus safety trigger versus the hinge trigger. So I haven't felt one of those, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So I was just going to put you on the spot about what high power would I get, but so some of the FEG ones you think the metal is okay? Because even the FEG PP clones I'm looking at to get a 32, one of the PP clones are cheap.
The FEGs were made with FN's first generation tooling. When they upgraded their tooling, it went to Hungary. And
okay, so when their tooling started to get dull or old, there you go. We send it over there.
FEGs can be a challenge to upgrade, although we have been successful and seen a lot of them. Tolerances are interesting. And you got to do workarounds sometime to put SFS in.
Okay, so for 300 and let's say, I mean, I don't know, somewhere between the 350 and 450 ducks, I find a decent looking shooter grade, pretty good, nice shooter grade FEG, and then send it off to you for new springs, new barrel if it needs it, and that kind of stuff. You think that would be a good way to go?
Sure.
And I'm impressed with my English. So, guys, I'll be having more stuff with that, including versus stock versus a T-Sauce coming up, guys. And that was before Mark did his magic on it. And then once it was enhanced, I put it against the Bursa, really nice American-made 1911, or at least assembled and all that kind of thing. So there are videos coming up with that. So, guys, if you got a 320, you're not going to be able to sell it for nothing, right? So send it off to Mark and make it safe. There'll probably be some follow-up videos on that and trigger quality on my channel. So always like, share, subscribe, comment down below, hit the notification bell, do all the things, and all that. And, if you got a 320 or a 1911 for the SFS system or a high power or any of the Browning models we discussed, anything discussed today, or apparently CZ75s and pistol at the Mekulovas, you got a Makarov, I guess. And I looked at your site. You got some nice grips and stuff too. I was like, ooh, yes. that would look pretty nice. I mean, how many Makarovs have you seen with adjustable night sights?
Not many.
I think it might have a story or two to tell.
I don't think I've ever. I didn't know those exist until now.
Yeah, I think I tracked it down to like Norway or Sweden or something. Okay. Somewhere had the front night sight. I've seen some of the adjustable rears. I don't know. I just know it probably, but it's a real Russian IMA, so I'm kind of happy.
You know what? My partner and where my wife is, where my wife is from, Bulgaria, is absolutely Makarov central. I mean, the Makarov is not dead over there. Although
10 years ago, you used to be able to get the Bulgarian nice ones, nice bluing for like nothing, and
$75 or something.
Yeah, that's all dried up. Unfortunately,
completely dried up. Yes, when the Iron Curtain fell, a lot of those storehouses full of a lot of those weapons got sold, and a lot of them came here, and that was the reason, is because all those old Russians or Soviet satellite countries of Russia's were all on the Makarovs.
So you travel. What country should I go? You like Bulgaria? What about Romania? What about Belgium? What are some places, if I was going to head that way, I should go visit? Last question.
Are you? Bulgaria, no question.
You like it.
Your money will buy you a lot there. Without any doubt, you will be able to do more, enjoy more. If it's summertime, beaches are phenomenal in Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, north of Albania?
No. Bulgaria is, if you think Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, right down the west side of the Black Sea coast. South of Bulgaria then would be Turkey.
So do you usually spend like 3 months out of the year over there, kind of thing?
A little bit more than that.
Yeah.
A little bit more. My wife is from there. Slav, my co-founding partner, is there. So we do a lot of work when I'm over there. And
so guys, grab your 320s and whatever else you want worked on, whether it's high power 1911, 1905, you got something sitting there, collecting dust, send it off to Mark, and you know, if you want it safe and you BH Spring Solutions, High Power Medic, and Mark, anything else you want to sign off with?
I want to say hello to all the BH veterans. That's our name for our customers that might be watching this now or in on a replay. And Dan, it has been my pleasure visiting with you this evening very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Stay safe in the cold weather and icy roads. I appreciate all your work. And guys, there will be follow-up videos on the 320 and on the enhanced high power that I got now, and as well as the rare double action only high power. So guys, please make sure to check that out. Thank you very much for everything. Bye, Mark. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining us, guys. Please put comments below the video and all that. Thanks, guys. Bye. Kaboom.